Some stories find us when we least expect them. This one found me on a February night in Minnesota, when the wind howled like something wounded, and the snow fell so thick you couldn't see your own hand in front of your face. It's a story about a man who thought his life was finished, about a dog who had every reason to give up but didn't, and about how two broken souls, brought together by nothing but chance and a blizzard, learned to heal each other. If you've ever lost someone you loved, truly loved, down to your bones, you'll understand Arthur Sterling. If you've ever been thrown away by people who should have protected you, you'll understand Bella. This is their story, and maybe, in some small way, it's yours too. 2:47 a.m. Arthur's eyes snapped open. Not the wind. He knew the wind had listened to it rattle these windows for 43 years. Not the house settling either. Old bones creaking. Margaret used to say. Just like us, something else, a sound thin as thread, cutting clean through the blizzard's roar. He lay still, listened. There it was again, high, desperate, alive. His feet hit the cold floor before his mind caught up. Down the stairs, one hand on the banister, knees protesting every step. The kitchen clock read 2:48. The coffee maker sat dark and silent. 2 mugs on the counter, he still set out 2 every night. Couldn't break the habit, didn't want to. The old Zenith radio on the windowsill was unplugged. Margaret used to turn it on first thing every morning. Weather and farm prices. He hadn't touched it since she passed. The sound came again, closer now. Right outside. Arthur's hand found the doorknob, cold brass against his palm. He turned it. The porch light threw a weak yellow circle onto the snow, and in that circle a shape, huddled against the bottom step like something the storm had spit out. Dark, crusted white with ice. A body curved into a question mark, wrapped around something smaller. No, not something, several somethings. 5 tiny forms pressed against a heaving belly. The dog lifted her head. Their eyes met. Arthur had seen plenty of dogs in his 68 years. Farm dogs, hunting dogs, the labs and retrievers that seemed a standard issue in this part of Minnesota. He'd had Duke for 13 years, buried him out back under the oak tree, cried like a baby when he shoveled that last bit of dirt. But he'd never seen eyes like these, not begging. That's what struck him first. Every stray he'd ever encountered had that look, pleading, desperate, will work for food. This dog's eyes held none of that. Just a question, plain as English. Well, what are you going to do about it? The wind screamed. Snow swirled between them, carrying that sharp smell of deep winter, clean and cold, the kind that burned your nostrils. The puppies squirmed against their mother's belly. Mewling sounds almost swallowed by the storm. Arthur Sterling stood in his doorway in his bare feet and his dead wife's favorite flannel robe. And he made a choice. He opened the door wider. Come on, then. The dog didn't move, just watched him, sizing him up the way folks used to do before shaking hands on a deal. I ain't gonna hurt you. His voice came out rusty. When was the last time he'd talked out loud, really talked? Not just grunted at the grocery clerk or mumbled at the television. Ain't gonna hurt your babies either. Still nothing. Arthur lowered himself to one knee. His joints screamed. He ignored them. Listen here, it's 12 below out there. You stay on that step. Those pups won't make it till morning. You know that, I know that. He held out his hand empty. Palm up. So what's it gonna be? The dog's nostrils flared, scenting him, taking his measure. 10 seconds passed, 20. The cold bit through the flannel robe, through Arthur's thin pajamas, down to his bones. He didn't move, didn't blink. Then, the dog stood, slowly, painfully. Her front left leg buckled slightly, and Arthur's chest tightened at the wrongness of the angle. Something healed that shouldn't have healed that way. She limped forward. 1 step, 2, stopped at the threshold, looked at him one more time. Arthur didn't say anything. Didn't need to. Some conversations happen without words. The dog stepped inside. Her puppies dangled from her mouth. She'd picked up the nearest one. The way mothers do, trusting Arthur with the rest, trusting him with everything. He gathered the remaining 4 in his arms. Tiny bodies, barely bigger than his fist, eyes sealed shut, heartbeats fluttering against his palms. Quick and light. "Okay," he breathed. "Okay? Let's get you warm." He carried them to the living room. The dog followed, claws clicking on hardwood, leaving wet prints that Margaret would have mopped up immediately. Margaret, who was 7 months gone. Margaret, whose reading glasses still sat on the nightstand, whose cardigan still hung on the kitchen chair, whose absence filled this house like smoke. Arthur pushed the thought away. Not now, later. He grabbed blankets from the hall closet, the old quilts Margaret's mother had made. The ones they only used for guests. No guests now, no one for months. Just Arthur and the silence and the endless ticking of the kitchen clock. He made a nest near the radiator, set the puppies in it. The dog watched every movement, body tense, ready to bolt or fight or both. "Easy," Arthur murmured. "Easy, girl." He stepped back, gave her space. The dog sniffed the blankets, sniffed her puppies, circled once, twice, then lowered herself into the nest, curling her body around her babies with a sigh that seemed to come from somewhere deep and exhausted. Arthur sank into his armchair, the one by the window. Margaret's chair sat empty across from him, as it had for 7 months, as it would forever. He watched the dog nurse her puppies, watched her eyes grow heavy, then snap open, then grow heavy again. Fighting sleep, fighting trust, fighting everything she'd learned to fight. "You can rest," he told her. "Ain't nobody gonna hurt you here." She didn't believe him. He could see that plain as day, but she was too tired to run, too tired to do anything but lie there, pressed against her babies, while the blizzard raged outside and the clock ticked on the wall, and Arthur Sterling sat in his dead wife's house wondering what in the world he was supposed to do now. Morning came gray and bitter. Arthur hadn't slept, hadn't tried, just sat in that chair, watching, waiting, listening to the storm die and the silence rush in to fill its place. The dog was awake now, had been for an hour, watching him right back. In the pale light, he could see her clearly for the first time. German Shepherd, classic coloring black and tan, though the tan had gone dull with poor nutrition. Her ribs pressed against her skin like fingers beneath a sheet. Her fur was matted, clumped with ice that was slowly melting into the blankets. And on her hind quarters, Arthur's jaw tightened. Scars, old ones, raised welts beneath the fur, the kind that came from belts or switches or things he didn't want to think about. 3 of them, parallel, running from hip to flank. Someone had hit this dog, more than once, hard enough to leave marks that would never fully fade. His hands curled into fists. The dog noticed the change in him. Her body stiffened, ears flattened. Arthur forced himself to breathe, unclenched his fists, smoothed his face. "Sorry," he said quietly. "Ain't mad at you." He stood slowly, telegraphing every movement, and walked to the kitchen. The dog's eyes followed him. He felt them on his back like a physical weight. He opened the refrigerator. Not much inside. He'd been eating like a bachelor these past months, which is to say barely eating at all. Some leftover chicken, a carton of eggs, half a loaf of bread going stale. Margaret would have been horrified. Arthur pulled out the chicken, started shredding it into a bowl, added some water, made a kind of soup, heated it on the stove until it was warm but not hot. The smell of it simple. Homey reminded him of sick days when Margaret would make him broth and crackers. He pushed that thought away too. He carried the bowl back to the living room, set it down 3 feet from the dog's nest. She looked at the bowl, looked at him, didn't move. "Gotta eat," Arthur said. "Those babies need you strong." Nothing. He sat back down in his chair, picked up the newspaper he hadn't read yesterday, pretended to read it now. 5 minutes passed. 10, 15, Arthur turned a page. The paper rustled. The dog's head lifted. Slowly, so slowly, she uncurled from around her puppies, crawled forward on her belly, eyes never leaving Arthur's face, waiting for the trick. The trap. The hand that would come out of nowhere and remind her what humans really were. Arthur didn't look at her, just kept his eyes on the newspaper. The sound of lapping. Quiet at first, then hungrier. He glanced up. The dog was eating, face buried in the bowl, tail tucked, body ready to flee at the slightest provocation. Arthur let out a breath he didn't know he'd been holding. "That's a girl," he murmured. "That's a good girl." She flinched at his voice, but she didn't stop eating. Progress, small, fragile. But progress. Arthur watched her finish the bowl. Watched her retreat back to her puppies. Watched her curl around them with that same exhausted sigh. Then he picked up the phone and dialed a number he knew by heart. "Sam, it's Arthur Sterling. I need you to come out to the house. Got a situation here." Dr. Sam Hendricks arrived at 8 a.m., black bag in hand. Snow still clinging to his boots. He was a big man. Sam, 58 years old. Hands like dinner plates. Voice like gravel in a tumbler. He'd been the only vet within 30 miles for going on 25 years. Had treated Duke through his whole life the ear infections, the arthritis, the tumor that finally took him. Had sat with Arthur in the barn afterward, not saying much. Just being there. That's who Sam was. A man who showed up. "Heard you picked up some strays." Sam knelt beside the nest, movement slow and practiced. "Hey there, Mama. Let's see what we've got." The dog growled, low, warning. "Easy," Arthur said. "He's okay." The growl faded to a rumble. The dog watched Sam's hands like they were loaded weapons. Sam examined her with the gentle efficiency of long practice. Checked her eyes, her teeth, her heartbeat. Palpated her abdomen, ran his fingers carefully over her legs. When he got to the front left one, the dog whimpered, "Sorry, girl. I know. Sam's voice was soft. His face was not. He examined the puppies next. Counted them. Weighed them on a small scale. Checked their reflexes. The mother watched every movement. Body vibrating with tension. Finally, Sam sat back on his heels. Well, malnourished, but not critical. Dehydration's worse. I'll leave some fluids. Show you how to administer them. Puppies are small but viable. 10 days old, maybe 12. Touch and go for the runt. But the others should pull through. And the leg. Sam's expression darkened. Fracture. Old one. 6 months at least. Someone. He stopped, shook his head. Someone didn't bother getting it set. Just let it heal on its own. She'll always have that limp. Arthur's hands curled into fists again. He shoves them in his pockets. What about the scars? Sam didn't answer immediately, just looked at the dog, then at Arthur, then back at the dog. "I've seen this before," he said finally. "Puppy mills, breeding operations. They keep the females in cages, breed them every heat cycle, pump out litter after litter until they can't anymore. Then—" he made a gesture, throwing something away, and the scars, discipline. "When they don't cooperate, when they try to protect their puppies." Sam's voice was flat, professional, but his eyes were angry. "It's not illegal, Arthur. Most of it isn't. Anyway, just unregulated, just business." Arthur looked at the dog, at the scars, at the puppies nursing blindly against her belly. "Business," he repeated. "I know." Silence stretched between them. The clock ticked. The radiator hissed. "I can take her to the shelter in Brainerd," Sam offered. "They'll find her a good home. Good homes for the puppies, too, once they're weaned." Arthur didn't respond. "Arthur, she stays." Sam raised an eyebrow. "You sure? That's a lot of work. Feeding her back to health. Raising those pups. She stays." Something flickered across Sam's face, something that might have been relief. "All right then." He stood, joints popping. "I'll swing by tomorrow with the supplies, antibiotics, fluids, puppy formula in case she can't produce enough milk." He grabbed his coat, paused at the door. "Arthur." "Yeah. When's the last time you slept?" Arthur didn't answer. Sam nodded like that was answer enough. "Get some rest. You're no good to her exhausted." He left. The door clicked shut behind him. Arthur stood in the middle of his living room, looking at the dog, looking at the puppies, looking at this impossible situation that had landed on his doorstep in the middle of a blizzard. The dog looked back at him, still wary, still uncertain. "Guess it's just you and me now," Arthur said. The dog didn't respond, but she didn't look away either. Arthur walked to the couch, lay down, pulled the old Afghan over his legs, the one Margaret had crocheted the winter they got snowed in for 6 days. The one that still smelled like her lavender soap if he buried his face in it deep enough. "I'm gonna rest my eyes for a minute," he told the dog. "You holler if you need something." He closed his eyes. For the first time in 7 months, Arthur Sterling slept without dreaming of his wife. If this story has found its way to your heart today, we'd be honored to know where you're reading from. Drop us a line in the comments, as the old folks say. A burden shared is a burden halved, and a joy shared is a joy doubled. Arthur woke to silence. Not the comfortable silence of a house at rest. The other kind. The kind that pressed against your eardrums like cotton. He lay on the couch, Afghan tangled around his legs, and stared at the ceiling. Same water stain near the light fixture, same crack running toward the window. Margaret used to say it looked like the Mississippi River. He never saw it. Still didn't. The clock in the kitchen ticked. Loud. When had it gotten so loud? 43 years in this house, and he'd never noticed that clock until Margaret was gone. His bones creaked as he sat up. The dog's still there, still watching from her nest by the radiator. Puppies squirming against her belly. 5 tiny heartbeats he was now responsible for. What time was it? Gray light through the windows. Could be 7. Could be noon. The days blurred together when you had nowhere to be. Arthur's feet found the cold floor. He shuffled to the kitchen, joints stiff, back aching from the couch. The coffee maker sat on the counter, timer still set for 2 cups. Every morning, the same ritual reach for the second mug. Stop. Remember, put it back. This morning, his hand hovered over Margaret's cup, faded blue ceramic. chip on the rim from when Linda dropped it as a teenager. He set it on the counter anyway, filled it with nothing, left it there, handle facing left, the way she liked. The old Zenith radio caught his eye. Unplugged since March. Margaret's radio. Arthur reached out, plugged it in. Static crackled. Then a voice, the morning farm report. Prices for corn and soybeans. Weather coming in from the west. The same station Margaret listened to every morning while she made breakfast. The sound filled the kitchen, pushed back against the silence. He poured his coffee. Black, no sugar. Sat in his chair at the table. The other chair, her chair, held a folded newspaper from 3 weeks ago. He couldn't bring himself to move it. From the living room came a sound, a whimper, high and thin. Arthur set down his mug, listened. Another whimper, then a yip, urgent. He walked to the doorway. The dog was standing now, circling her nest, nosing at the puppies. Her body language had changed. Tight, anxious. She looked at Arthur, then back at the puppies, then at Arthur again. Something was wrong. He moved closer, knelt down, ignoring the protest in his knees. The puppies were squirming. 4 of them. Anyway, climbing over each other, searching for warmth. 4. Arthur counted again. His stomach dropped. The runt, the smallest one. It lay apart from its siblings, motionless, its tiny chest barely rising. Arthur's hands moved before his mind caught up. He scooped the runt from the blankets. Cold, too cold. The tiny body fit in his palm. Light as a newborn chick. "Come on," he muttered. "Come on, little one." The puppy's chest rose and fell, barely. So faint he had to hold his breath to see it. The mother dog pressed close, whining, her nose bumping Arthur's elbow. He could feel her breath, hot and quick, against his skin. "I got him. Easy, girl. I got him." But did he? What did he know about saving anything? Arthur stood. His knees screamed. He ignored them, carried the puppy to the kitchen, the mother following so close her shoulder brushed his leg with every step. Warm. The pup needed warmth. He grabbed a dish towel from the drawer, wrapped it around the tiny body, tucked the bundle against his chest, inside his flannel shirt. The puppy's heartbeat pulsed against Arthur's ribs, faint, too fast, like a watch wound too tight. "Stay with me," he whispered. "You hear, stay with me." He filled a pot with water, set it on the stove, turned the burner to low. Steam rose, curling toward the ceiling, carrying the mineral smell of well water. What else think? What would Margaret do? Margaret, she'd saved a litter of kittens once, back in '87. Found them in the barn, mother dead. 4 babies barely breathing. She'd fed them with an eyedropper every 2 hours for 6 weeks straight. Didn't lose a single one. Eyedropper. Where Arthur yanked open the junk drawer, rubber bands, dead batteries, a screwdriver missing its handle. There pushed to the back a plastic dropper from some long-forgotten medicine bottle. He pulled out the milk Sam had left, puppy formula, mixed it with warm water, hand shaking, spilling more than he measured. The smell of it, faintly sweet, like powdered milk, filled the kitchen. Didn't matter how much he spilled, just needed something in this pup's belly. The mother dog sat at his feet, rigid, watching every movement. Her eyes tracked the bundle against Arthur's chest, tracked the dropper, tracked his hands. Arthur eased the puppy from his shirt. Still breathing, still cold, but less so. The warmth of his body had done something. He touched the dropper to the pup's mouth. Nothing. "Come on." His voice cracked. "Open up." The puppy's head lolled. Its tongue, pink and tiny, Didn't move. Arthur tried again, squeezed a single drop onto the pup's lips. The tongue twitched, licked. Another drop, another lick. Arthur's breath caught. That's it. That's my boy. Drop by drop, slow, patient. The puppy's swallowing reflex kicked in weak at first, then stronger. Its paws kneaded the air, searching for something to push against. Arthur provided his finger. The pup latched on, suckling at nothing, but the motion seemed to calm it. The kitchen clock ticked. The radio droned on something about a cold front moving in from Canada. Arthur didn't hear it. His whole world had narrowed to this tiny creature in his hands. His back ached from hunching over. His arms trembled from holding still. Sweat beaded on his forehead despite the cold house. The mother dog hadn't moved, hadn't taken her eyes off her baby. Finally, the puppy stopped drinking. Its belly, once sunken, now bulged slightly. Its breathing had steadied, deepened. Arthur tucked it back into his shirt, felt the heartbeat stronger now, steadier against his own. Okay, he breathed. Okay. He looked down at the mother dog. She looked up at him. Something passed between them. Not trust, not yet, but something close and understanding. You helped my baby. I did. Maybe you're not like the others. Maybe I'm not. Arthur walked back to the living room, lowered himself to the floor beside the nest. His knees would hate him tomorrow, but tomorrow was tomorrow's problem. He placed the runt back among its siblings, watched it burrow toward warmth, toward its mother's belly. The mother dog circled twice, then lay down, curling her body around all 5 puppies. She licked the runt's face, long slow strokes, cleaning it, welcoming it back. Arthur leaned against the couch. Exhaustion pressed down on him like a heavy blanket. The phone rang. He stared at it, let it ring. Once, twice, 3 times. The machine clicked on. Margaret's voice. He still hadn't changed it. Couldn't, wouldn't filled the room. You've reached Arthur and Margaret Sterling. Leave a message and we'll call you back. Beep. Arthur, it's Sam. Just checking in. Listen, I did some digging last night. Called a buddy of mine at Animal Control over in Carlton County. There was a raid a few weeks back, puppy mill operation. Place called Crane's Canine Farm. Bunch of dogs escaped during the commotion. Your girl matches the description of one of them. Arthur's jaw tightened. Here's the thing. The owner guy named Victor Crane, he's fighting the charges. Claims his operation was legal. Just got some bad press. And if he's looking for his dogs... Sam paused. Well, legally speaking, they're still his property. Microchipped and registered. The word hit Arthur like a slap. Property. I'm not saying anything's gonna happen. Just wanted you to know. Call me back when you get a chance. Click. The machine beeped. Silence flooded back in. Arthur stared at the phone, at the dog, at the puppies nursing peacefully, unaware of the world that had already failed them once. Property. Someone had beaten this dog, broken her leg and left it to heal wrong, bred her until she couldn't be bred anymore, then thrown her away like a worn-out tool, and the law called her property. Arthur's hands curled into fists. The knuckles went white. The mother dog lifted her head, watched him. Those amber eyes, still wary, still careful, but something new in them now. The question, what are you going to do? Arthur didn't have an answer. Not yet. But he knew one thing, knew it down in his bones. In the same place he'd known Margaret was the one the first time he saw her at the county fair in '79, in the same place he'd known Duke was gone before the vet said the words, Nobody was taking this dog, not without a fight. He reached out slowly. The dog tensed but didn't pull away. His fingers touched her head just barely, just the tips, resting on the fur between her ears. She closed her eyes. Arthur's throat tightened. "I got you, girl," he said quietly. "Whatever comes, I got you." The clock ticked. The radiator hissed. Outside, the wind picked up again, rattling the windows, whistling through the gaps in the old farmhouse walls. And somewhere, 2 counties over, a man named Victor Crane was fighting to get his property back. The mother dog's eyes opened. She looked at Arthur, looked toward the window, looked back at Arthur. Her ears pricked forward. Alert, a car engine, distant but approaching, tires crunching on frozen gravel. Arthur's head turned toward the driveway. He wasn't expecting anyone. The car wasn't Crane's. Arthur knew that before he saw the driver. Wrong sound. Crane would drive a truck something practical, utilitarian. This engine purred. Older model. Well-maintained. Eleanor Patterson's blue Buick rolled to a stop beside his mailbox. Arthur let out a breath he hadn't realized he'd been holding. Eleanor climbed out, casserole dish balanced on one arm. The other hand clutching her coat closed against the wind. 71 years old. White hair whipping around her face, and she still moved like a woman with somewhere to be. Arthur Sterling. Her voice carried across the yard. "I know you're in there. I saw you at the window." He hadn't been at the window, but he wasn't about to argue. The dog pressed against his leg, body tense. Arthur rested his hand on her head. "Easy. She's okay." He opened the door. Eleanor stopped mid-stride. Her eyes went to the dog, to the nest of blankets visible behind Arthur, to the puppies squirming in their makeshift bed. "Well," she blinked. "That's new." "Found her in the blizzard. Night before last." "Found her." Eleanor's eyebrow rose. "Or she found you." Arthur didn't answer. Stepped aside to let her in. Eleanor set the casserole on the kitchen counter. The smell hit Arthur immediately, tuna and cream of mushroom soup and crushed potato chips on top. The same thing she'd been bringing every week since the funeral. The same thing Margaret used to make on Friday nights. Her gaze swept the room. The unwashed dishes. The newspapers piled on Margaret's chair. The dog watching her from beside the radiator. "She's beautiful." Eleanor said quietly. "What's her name?" "Don't have one yet." "Every creature needs a name." "Arthur." He shrugged. Naming her felt like claiming her, and claiming her felt like tempting fate. Eleanor lowered herself to the floor with a grace that defied her age. The dog tensed but didn't retreat. Eleanor held out her hand, palm down. Fingers relaxed. Waited 1 second. 2, 3. The dog's nose twitched. She stretched forward, sniffed Eleanor's knuckles. Pulled back. Sniffed again, then barely. Almost imperceptibly her tail moved. "Hello there, sweetheart." Eleanor's voice dropped to a murmur. "You've had a rough time, haven't you?" The dog's ears flattened. Not in fear. Something else. Recognition, maybe. The understanding that this human, too, knew what it meant to carry wounds that didn't show. Eleanor scratched behind the dog's ear. The dog leaned into the touch, closed her eyes. Arthur watched from the kitchen doorway. His throat felt tight. "She doesn't let anyone touch her," he said. "She let you. That's different." "Is it?" Eleanor looked up at him. Her eyes, pale blue and sharp as ever, saw too much, always had. Arthur Sterling, I've been bringing you casseroles for 7 months. You barely open the door, barely say 2 words. And now, this dog shows up and suddenly I'm what? Alive. She said it simply, without judgment. You look like someone who's actually been sleeping, eating, doing something other than sitting in that chair staring at nothing. Arthur's jaw tightened. I wasn't, you were. We both know it. Eleanor stood, brushing off her knees. Don't matter now. What matters is you've got yourself a project. She's not a project. No, she's not. Eleanor picked up her coat. She's a second chance. For both of you. She paused at the door, turned back. Margaret came to see me, 2 weeks before she passed. Made me promise to check on you. Keep you from disappearing into this house like a ghost. Arthur's chest constricted. He couldn't speak. I've been trying, Arthur. Lord knows I've been trying. But you wouldn't let anyone in. Eleanor's voice softened. Maybe you'll let her in instead. She nodded toward the dog. The dog looked back at her, then at Arthur, then settled her head on her paws. I'll be back Thursday, Eleanor said. Try not to let the place go completely to ruin before then. The door clicked shut behind her. Arthur stood in the kitchen, listening to the Buick's engine fade down the gravel road. The casserole sat on the counter, still warm, filling the room with that familiar Friday night smell. Margaret made her promise. Of course she had. That was Margaret planning, organizing, taking care of everyone even when she couldn't take care of herself, even when she was dying. She'd been worried about him. You'll be fine, she'd told him. That last night in the hospital. You're the strongest man I know. He hadn't felt strong. Hadn't felt anything but empty. Until now. Arthur walked to the living room, lowered himself to the floor beside the nest. His knees protested. But quieter this time, like they were getting used to the indignity. The dog lifted her head, watched him settle. Bella, he said. The dog's ears pricked. That's what I'm calling you, Bella. Margaret always wanted a dog named Bella. Some movie she saw years back. Never got around to it. Bella's tail thumped against the blankets. Once, twice. Don't let it go to your head. Another thump. Arthur reached out, slow. Careful. His fingers found the fur between her ears. That soft spot she'd let him touch before. Bella closed her eyes, sighed. The puppies nursed, oblivious. The clock ticked. The radiator hissed. Outside, the sun broke through the clouds for the first time in days, throwing pale gold light across the floor. Arthur sat there, hand on Bella's head, and let the quiet wrap around him. Not the crushing silence of before, the kind that pressed down like deep water. A different kind now. Softer. Fuller. He thought about Margaret, about Eleanor, about second chances and promises kept and all the ways life surprised you when you'd given up expecting anything at all. Bella shifted, opened her eyes, looked toward the window. Arthur followed her gaze. The sun had caught something in the yard, a glint of metal near the tree line. He squinted. A truck, parked just beyond his property line, half hidden by the bare oaks, white, mud-spattered, watching. Arthur's hand stilled on Bella's head. His pulse quickened. The truck's engine started. It pulled away, slow and deliberate, disappearing down the county road. But not before Arthur caught the lettering on the door. Crane's Canine Farm. They knew where she was. 3 weeks passed. Arthur marked them, not by calendar days but by milestones. The first time, Bella ate from a bowl instead of his hand. The first time she walked to him instead of waiting for him to come to her. The first time she fell asleep with her head on his foot, trusting him enough to let her guard down completely. The puppies grew. Their eyes opened milky blue at first, then darkening to amber like their mother's. Their legs strengthened. They stumbled, then walked, then ran, turning Arthur's living room into a chaos of overturned water bowls, shredded newspapers, and tiny teeth marks on the furniture legs. He named them, one by one, Shadow, the biggest, black as coal with a white blaze on his chest; Daisy, the only female, tan and delicate and fierce; Scout, the curious one, always climbing, always exploring, always getting stuck in places he shouldn't be; Bear, quiet and watchful, content to observe while his siblings caused trouble; and Copper, the runt Arthur had saved that first morning, his fur tinged red gold in the light. 5 puppies, 5 heartbeats, 5 reasons to get out of bed in the morning. Arthur hadn't felt this tired in years. Hadn't felt this alive either. Deputy Marcus Cole stopped by on a Tuesday, cruiser parked in the driveway, hat in hand. Mr. Sterling. Marcus was young, 34. Arthur remembered, but he carried himself like someone who'd seen things. Respectful without being stiff. "Mind if I come in?" Arthur stepped aside. Bella pressed against his leg, watching the uniform, the belt, the badge. Her hackles rose but didn't fully lift. Easy girl. Marcus noticed the dog, noticed the puppies tumbling across the floor, noticed the wooden bed frame in the corner, Arthur's handiwork. Finished last week. Joints tight and edges sanded smooth. "Heard about your situation," Marcus said. "Sam Hendricks told me. Thought I should check in. Check in or warn me." Marcus's jaw tightened. He was an honest man, Arthur could see that. The kind who struggled when honesty and duty pulled in different directions. "Both, I guess." He pulled out a notepad. "Victor Crane filed a claim last week. Says he's got a microchipped German Shepherd missing from his property. Matches your dog's description." Arthur's hands curled at his sides. "She's not his dog." "Legally, I don't care about legally." Arthur's voice came out harder than he intended. "You see those scars on her. The leg that never healed right. That man beat her. Broke her. Used her up and threw her away. Now he wants her back." Marcus didn't flinch. "I know. Sam told me, but the law doesn't care about scars. Mr. Sterling, it cares about paperwork, and Crane's got paperwork." Silence stretched between them. Bella whined softly, sensing the tension. "What happens now?" Arthur asked. "Nothing yet. Crane's still fighting the charges from the raid. His lawyer's good, real good, if those charges get dropped." Marcus trailed off. "He comes for Bella. He has the right to reclaim his property, legally. That word again, property." Arthur's stomach turned. "What would you do?" he asked quietly. "If you were me?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. His eyes moved to Bella, to the puppies, to the wooden bed Arthur had built with his own hands. "Document everything." He said finally, "Vet bills, photos of her condition when you found her. Witness statements. If this goes to court, you'll want evidence she's better off here. And if it doesn't go to court, if he just shows up with a court order." Marcus put on his hat, adjusted the brim. "Then I'll have to enforce it." He met Arthur's eyes. "But I'll drag my feet as long as I can. That's the best I can offer." He left. Arthur watched the cruiser disappear down the road, then turned back to Bella. She was watching him, waiting. "We'll figure it out," he told her. "Somehow." Her tail wagged. Once, trusting him to keep a promise he didn't know how to keep. The workshop called to him. Arthur hadn't set foot in the barn since the day of the diagnosis. 18 months ago. Margaret had been in the kitchen when he came in from feeding the chickens. They'd had chickens then, before everything fell apart, and she'd said, casual as anything, "Dr. Henson called. Wants me to come in for more tests." He'd known then, something in her voice, something in the way she wouldn't meet his eyes. 3 months later, she was gone. The barn had become a tomb, a monument to the life they'd planned and never lived. The bookshelf he was going to build for her romance novels. The garden bench for the backyard. The Arthur pushed open the door. Sawdust still coated the workbench. His tools hung on the pegboard, exactly where he'd left them. The smell hit him: wood shavings, varnish. Decades of honest labor soaked into the walls. Bella followed him in, sniffed the corners, sneezed at the dust. "Yeah," Arthur said. "Been a while." He reached for the old transistor radio on the shelf, covered in dust. Batteries probably dead. He turned the dial anyway, static. Then a voice, the afternoon farm report. Same station Margaret used to play in the kitchen, same announcer, talking about soybean futures and the price of feed corn. The sound filled the barn, pushed back against the silence. Arthur ran his hand along the workbench, felt the grain beneath his fingers. These hands had built a house from nothing. Rocking chairs that sat on porches across 3 counties. A crib for his first grandchild. A hope chest for Linda's wedding. What were they now? Useless. Idle, good for nothing but holding coffee cups and remote controls. Margaret's voice. Unbidden, idle hands are the devil's workshop. Arthur. He picked up a piece of pine, turned it over. Good grain, smooth. He'd bought it for something, couldn't remember what now. Bella settled at his feet, yawned. Arthur reached for his saw. The bed frame took a week. Not because it was complicated, it wasn't. Just 4 boards and some joints, but because his hands had forgotten the rhythms. Had to relearn. Had to remember. But they did remember. Muscle memory. Deeper than grief. He sanded the edges until they were smooth enough for puppies. Carved a bone shape into the headboard because Margaret would have liked that. Added a lip around the edge so the little ones couldn't roll out. When he set it in the corner of the living room, the puppies piled in immediately, climbing over each other, fighting for the best spot, yipping and tumbling and being alive. Bella watched from her blanket, then stood, walked over, sniffed the frame, looked at Arthur, climbed in with her babies. Arthur's throat tightened. He turned away, pretending to adjust something that didn't need adjusting. Eleanor found him in the workshop the next afternoon, the radio playing low. Some country song from the 70s. Building again. She leaned against the doorframe, coat dusted with snow. Trying. She walked in, ran her hand along the workbench. Same as he had. Stopped at a half-finished piece of birdhouse. Just started. Rough cuts waiting to be shaped. Margaret used to say you could fix anything, except a leaky faucet. Eleanor laughed, short, surprised. She told me about that, said you'd been fighting that kitchen sink for 30 years. Still leaks. Some things do. They stood in silence. Sawdust floated in the light from the window. Bella lay in the corner, watching them both. She's doing better, Eleanor said. The dog, she's putting on weight, moves easier. Yeah, so are you. Arthur didn't answer. I mean it, Arthur, whatever this is. She gestured at the workshop, at Bella, at the world he'd started rebuilding. Keep doing it. She laughed. Arthur picked up his saw. Word spread. Small town. People started showing up. The hardware store owner brought dog food, 50-pound bag. wouldn't take payment. The librarian brought books on dog training. A young mother asked if she could bring her kids to see the puppies. Arthur said yes, surprised himself by meaning it. The children were loud, overwhelming. They petted the puppies with hands that didn't know gentle, squealed at every lick, begged their mother for one of their own. Bella watched from her bed, tense at first. Then slowly she relaxed. Let the smallest girl scratch behind her ears. Licked the tears off a toddler's cheek when he tripped and fell. She's so good with them, the mother said, wonder in her voice. Arthur nodded, didn't trust himself to speak. Pastor Robert Hayes came on a Saturday. Didn't bring a Bible, brought 2 Budweisers. Thought you might need these more than a sermon. Arthur almost smiled. You might be right. They sat on the porch, snow falling softly. Bella curled at Arthur's feet, puppies wrestling inside. Haven't seen you at church, Hayes said. Haven't felt much like church. Fair enough. Hayes took a long drink. Margaret made me promise to check on you. Guess I'm about 7 months late. Guess so. She worried about you, at the end, more than she worried about herself. Arthur's chest ached. Sounds like her. Said you were stubborn as a mule, said you'd try to disappear into this house and never come out. She wasn't wrong, no. Hayes looked at Bella, at the puppies visible through the window. But she also said you were the strongest man she'd ever known, said you'd find your way back eventually. Arthur stared at his beer. The condensation dripped onto his fingers, cold and wet. Don't feel strong. Nobody does, not when it matters. Hayes finished his drink. Set down the bottle. Strength ain't about how you feel, Arthur. It's about what you do anyway. He left. Arthur sat on the porch until the sun went down, and the cold drove him inside. Week 6. February's last gasp. Arthur was in the workshop, sanding a new project, a rocking chair. His first in 2 years when Bella's bark split the air. Not her usual bark. Sharp, urgent, warning. He dropped the sandpaper, crossed to the barn door. The radio kept playing behind him. Some advertisement for tractor parts. A truck in the driveway, white, mud-spattered. Same one he'd seen watching from the tree line weeks ago. A man climbed out, 50s. Heavy build, flannel jacket stretched across broad shoulders. Behind him, a second man younger, wearing a suit despite the cold. Arthur's pulse hammered in his throat. Victor Crane stood at the bottom of his porch steps, folder in hand, smile on his face. Mr. Sterling, Crane's voice carried across the yard. I believe you have something that belongs to me. Arthur didn't move from the barn doorway. Bella pressed against his leg, growl low in her throat. He could feel her trembling, not from cold, from memory. She knew this man. Mr. Sterling. Crane took a step forward. The lawyer hung back. Briefcase clutched to his chest. I'm Victor Crane. I own Crane's Canine Farm over in Carlton County. That dog you've got there, she's mine. Arthur's voice came out flat. No. Crane's smile flickered. Excuse me. I said no. Arthur walked toward the porch. Slow, deliberate. Bella followed. Pressed so close her shoulder bumped his thigh with every step. She's not yours, not anymore. I've got paperwork, says otherwise. Crane held up the folder. Registration, microchip records, proof of purchase going back 4 years. That dog is legally my property. Property. Arthur stopped at the bottom of the steps. That what you call her, that's what the law calls her. They stood 3 feet apart. Crane was bigger, younger, stronger, used to getting his way. Arthur was 68 years old with bad knees and a heart still learning how to beat again. But he didn't step back. You see her leg. Arthur's voice stayed level. The one that healed wrong. Crane's jaw tightened. Dogs get into scrapes. Scrapes. Arthur's hands curled into fists. And those scars on her back, she get those from scrapes too. I don't know what you're... Someone beat this dog. Someone broke her leg and never bothered to fix it. Someone used her to make puppies until she couldn't anymore, then threw her out like garbage. Arthur took one step closer. That someone was you. Crane's face reddened. The lawyer shifted nervously behind him. Now wait just a minute. I found her in a blizzard, starving, freezing, protecting her babies with her own body because that's all she had left. Arthur's voice dropped. You don't get to call that property. Silence. The wind cut between them. Sharp and cold. Crane recovered first. His smile returned harder now. Edges showing. Look, old man, I'm trying to be civil here. I don't want trouble. Just give me the dog and the puppies, and we're done. And if I don't... The lawyer stepped forward, cleared his throat. Mr. Sterling, my client has every legal right to reclaim his animal. If you refuse, we'll return with a court order and the sheriff. At that point, you could be charged with theft of property. Arthur looked at the lawyer, looked at Crane, looked at Bella, pressed against his leg, eyes fixed on the man who had hurt her. Get off my land. Crane's smile vanished. You're making a mistake. Wouldn't be my first. Arthur climbed the porch steps, opened the door. Bella slipped inside. You've got 30 seconds before I call the sheriff myself. The sheriff's on my side. Sterling, the law's on my side. Arthur turned, met Crane's eyes. Maybe, but I'm not giving you that dog. Not today, not ever. You want her, you come back with your court order, and we'll see what happens then. He stepped inside, closed the door. His hands were shaking. He pressed them flat against the wood until they stopped. Bella stood in the middle of the living room, watching him. The puppies had gone quiet in their bed, sensing the tension. Outside, Crane's voice muffled. Angry reached through the walls, then footsteps, a car door, an engine starting. Arthur watched through the window as the white truck backed down the driveway and disappeared. Gone, for now. He sank into his chair. Bella walked over, pressed her head against his knee. I know, girl. His voice came out rough. I know. Word traveled fast. By evening, there were cars in Arthur's driveway. Eleanor's Buick, Frank Donnelly's pickup, Pastor Hayes' sedan, a dozen others. They gathered on the lawn, voices rising and falling. Arthur stood on the porch, Bella at his side, and listened. Law's the law, Arthur. Can't just keep someone else's dog. That was Tom Hendricks, no relation to Sam, who ran the feed store and had opinions about everything. Law's not always right. Eleanor's voice cut through. That dog was half dead when Arthur found her. Starving and scared and covered in scars. You want to send her back to that. What I want doesn't matter. What the judge says matters. And what about decency? This from Sarah Miller, the librarian. What about doing what's right? The debate swirled. Arthur listened but didn't join. What was there to say? They were all right. They were all wrong. The law was the law, and the law didn't care about scars. Marcus Cole's cruiser pulled up. The deputy climbed out, face grim. The crowd parted for him. Mr. Sterling. Marcus stopped at the foot of the steps. Heard you had some visitors today. News travels. Small town. Marcus glanced at the crowd. At Eleanor, arms crossed. At Frank Donnelly, chewing on a toothpick. At Pastor Hayes, silent and watchful. Crane's already filed a motion. Judge is sympathetic, says there's no evidence of abuse, just hearsay. Arthur's stomach dropped. How long? Week? Maybe 2? He'll get his court order. When he does, Marcus took a breath. I'll have to enforce it. I don't want to, but I will. I understand. Do you? Marcus's voice lowered. Because if you fight this, if you resist. I said I understand. Marcus nodded, stepped back. The crowd murmured. Eleanor pushed through, took Arthur's arm. We won't let this happen, she said. We'll find a lawyer, fight it in court. With what money? We'll raise it, the whole town, Eleanor. And Arthur's voice was gentle but firm. I appreciate it, I do. But this isn't your fight. The devil it isn't. Her eyes blazed. Margaret was my friend for 40 years. She asked me to look after you. You think I'm going to let some, Eleanor? She stopped, blinked. Arthur looked at her, at the crowd, at all these people who had shown up, who cared, who wanted to help. I don't know how to win this, he said quietly. I don't even know if it can be won. But whatever happens, thank you for being here. The crowd fell silent. Eleanor squeezed his arm, didn't let go. The sun set. One by one, the cars pulled away. Promises to help, promises to call, promises to pray. Finally, it was just Arthur and Eleanor and Bella on the porch, watching the stars come out. Margaret would know what to do, Arthur said. Eleanor didn't answer, just put her hand over his. They sat until the cold drove them inside. Arthur didn't sleep that night. He sat in his chair, Bella at his feet, and watched the driveway through the window. Every set of headlights on the county road made his pulse jump. Every creak of the old house sounded like footsteps. Outside, the wind picked up. An owl called from the oak tree low, mournful. Somewhere in the distance, coyotes yipped and howled, their voices carrying across the frozen fields. Bella didn't sleep either. Her ears twitched at every sound. Her eyes never fully closed. 3 a.m. Arthur picked up the phone, stared at it. David's number. He could call, explain the situation, ask for help, legal help, money, something. But what would he say? Your father's losing his mind over a dog he's known 6 weeks. Drop everything and come save him. He set the phone down. Margaret's photograph watched him from the mantel. Wedding day. That dress she'd sewn herself because they couldn't afford to buy one. That smile she'd worn all day, even when the cake fell over and the minister mispronounced her name. What would you do, Maggie? Silence. The clock ticked. The radiator hissed. The coyotes howled again. Closer now. You'd fight? He said it out loud. Surprised himself. You'd fight because it's right, even if you couldn't win. Bella lifted her head, looked at him. I don't know how to fight this. His voice cracked. I don't know how to win. Bella stood, walked over, rested her head on his knee, those amber eyes, still trusting, still waiting. Arthur put his hand on her head. But I'll try. Whatever happens, I'll try. The clock ticked. The stars wheeled overhead. The owl called one more time, then went silent. And in the gray light of dawn, a week later, Arthur Sterling stood on his porch and watched Deputy Marcus Cole's cruiser pull into his driveway. Behind it came the white truck. The court order had arrived. Marcus handed Arthur the paperwork. Arthur didn't read it. Didn't need to. The seal at the top said everything. County Court, State of Minnesota, official business. I'm sorry, Marcus said. I dragged my feet as long as I could. Behind the cruiser, Victor Crane climbed out of his truck. The lawyer followed, this time. They'd brought a metal crate, the kind used for transporting livestock, wire mesh, padlock on the door. The smell of rust and old fear wafted from it. Even from here. Arthur's hands went numb. I need her now. Sterling. Crane's voice carried across the yard. Dog and puppies, all of them. The crowd had gathered again. Word traveled fast in Millbrook. Eleanor stood at the edge of the driveway, face pale. Frank Donnelly, Pastor Hayes, Sarah Miller, a dozen others, watching, waiting, helpless. Arthur looked at the crate, at the padlock, at the wire mesh that would cage Bella for the drive back to whatever concrete pen awaited her. Can I have a minute with her? Crane glanced at the lawyer, shrugged. 5 minutes. Then we're leaving. Arthur turned, walked inside. Bella met him at the door. Her tail wagged that familiar thump against his leg, but her eyes were uncertain. She could smell the tension, taste it in the air. Arthur knelt, his knees hit the hardwood floor. The pain didn't register. Hey, girl. Bella pressed her forehead against his chest. Her whole body trembled. Listen to me. Arthur's voice cracked. He cleared his throat, tried again. You're gonna go with that man. I can't stop it. I tried everything I could think of, but... He stopped. What was there to say? Bella licked his face, once, twice. Her tongue was warm. Her breath smelled like the breakfast he'd made her, scrambled eggs, her favorite. You're a good dog. The words scraped out of him. The best dog I ever knew. And these past weeks... His throat closed. He couldn't finish. The puppies tumbled around them, oblivious. Shadow nipped at Arthur's shoelace. Scout tried to climb his knee. Copper, the runt. The one Arthur had saved that first morning, pressed against his mother's side. Sensing something wrong, Arthur gathered them up, one by one, held each of them against his chest. Felt their heartbeats quick, trusting, alive. Then he stood, okay. He opened the door. Crane waited on the porch, crate at his feet. The wire mesh glinted in the morning light. Up close, the rust smell was stronger, mixed with the cold metal tang of winter. Bella saw it. Her body went rigid, her legs locked. Come on. Crane snapped his fingers. Let's go. Bella didn't move. I said, come on. Crane reached for her collar. Arthur's hand shot out, grabbed Crane's wrist. Don't. The word came out low, almost a growl. Everyone froze. Marcus's hand drifted toward his belt. The lawyer stepped back. The crowd held its breath. Crane looked at Arthur's hand on his wrist. Looked at Arthur's face. You really want to do this? Old man. Arthur's grip tightened. Every muscle in his body screamed at him to fight, to protect, to do something, anything other than stand here and watch. But what could he do? Break Crane's arm, throw a punch? And then what? Prison fines, the dog taken anyway. And Arthur labeled a violent criminal. He let go. Crane smiled, grabbed Bella's collar, dragged her toward the crate. Bella's claws scraped against the porch boards. She twisted, trying to break free. A whine escaped her throat, high, desperate. The sound of an animal who knew what was coming. Crane shoved her into the crate, slammed the door. The padlock clicked shut. The sound was the loudest thing Arthur had ever heard. Bella pressed her face against the wire mesh. Her eyes found Arthur's. Held them. Why Arthur couldn't answer, couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Crane loaded the crate into his truck. Came back for the puppies. One by one, he gathered them. Dropped them into a cardboard box like they were groceries. Shadow, Daisy, Scout, Bear, Copper. Copper whimpered when Crane picked him up. The runt, the fighter. The one who'd almost died that first night. Arthur watched it happen, watched and did nothing. The crowd watched too. Some looked away, others shook their heads. A few muttered condolences. Sympathy. Words that meant nothing. One voice rose above the rest. Younger. Mocking. Guess the old man couldn't handle it after all. Arthur didn't turn, didn't respond. Another voice. Should have known better than to get attached. And another. At his age. What's he need a dog for anyway? The words landed like blows, each one leaving a mark. 68 years old. Widower, useless, couldn't even protect one dog. Crane climbed into his truck, started the engine. Arthur stood on his porch and watched the white truck pull away. Through the rear window, he could see the crate, could see Bella's face pressed against the wire mesh. Eyes locked on him until the truck rounded the bend and disappeared. Gone. The crowd dispersed. Murmurs of sympathy. Pats on the shoulder. Eleanor touched his arm. He didn't feel it. Arthur, leave me alone. She hesitated, then nodded, stepped back. Arthur walked inside, closed the door, locked it. The house was silent. No scratching paws. No panting breath, no warm body pressed against his leg. Just the clock, ticking. The puppy's bed sat empty in the corner. Arthur had built it with his own hands, sanded the edges smooth, carved a bone shape into the headboard, useless now. He sank into his chair, the one by the window. Margaret's chair sat empty across from him. 2 empty chairs in an empty house. His gaze fell on the floor. Muddy paw prints Bella's. From this morning, tracked across the hardwood. Margaret would have mopped them up. Margaret would have known what to do. Margaret was gone. Bella was gone. The puppies were gone. Arthur's hands hung between his knees. Calloused, scarred. Hands that had built 100 beautiful things. Hands that couldn't protect anything that mattered. The tears came without warning. Not gentle tears, the kind you could wipe away and pretend never happened. These ripped out of him, ugly and raw. His shoulders shook. His breath came in gasps. Snot ran down his lip. He hadn't cried like this since Margaret's funeral. Hadn't let himself. Now he couldn't stop. The clock ticked. The radiator hissed. Outside, the sun rose higher, indifferent. Arthur Sterling sat in his empty house and wept like a child. Hours passed, or maybe minutes. Time had lost its meaning. Arthur's eyes were swollen, his throat raw, his chest hollow. He stared at the wall, at nothing. A knock at the door. He didn't move. Another knock, louder. Arthur? Eleanor's voice muffled through the wood. Arthur, open up. He didn't respond. Arthur, please, something's happened. Something in her tone, urgent, different. He stood. His legs felt like rubber. He crossed to the door, opened it. Eleanor stood on the porch. Phone clutched in her hand. Face flushed from running. It's Crane, she said. He's coming back. Arthur stared at Eleanor. What? Crane? He turned around. He's coming back. Eleanor's breath came fast. Marcus just called, said Crane pulled over about 10 miles out and sat there for 20 minutes. Now he's headed this way. Arthur's mind couldn't process it. Coming back. Why to gloat, to rub salt in the wound? I don't understand. Neither do I. Eleanor grabbed his arm. But you need to get out here. He followed her onto the porch. The morning sun had climbed higher, throwing long shadows across the yard. The crowd had thinned. Most people had drifted away after the truck left, but a few remained. Frank Donnelly, leaning against his pickup, Pastor Hayes, sitting on the porch rail, Sarah Miller, phone pressed to her ear. They all turned when Arthur appeared. "He's coming," Sarah said, "just past the Hendricks place." Arthur squinted down the road. Nothing yet. Just empty pavement and bare trees and the gray Minnesota sky. His hands hung at his sides, empty, useless. What did Crane want? What more could he take? The sound reached him before the sight. Engine rumble, tires on gravel, growing louder. The white truck appeared around the bend. Arthur's chest tightened. He could see the crate in the back, could see the shape inside Bella, pressed against the wire mesh, still watching. The truck pulled into the driveway, stopped. Crane sat behind the wheel, didn't move, didn't get out. 1 minute passed, 2. Arthur waited. Everyone waited. Finally, the driver's door opened. Crane stepped out. His face was different, harder to read. The smug confidence from earlier had cracked. Something else showed through. Discomfort, maybe, or something deeper. He walked to the back of the truck, stood there, hand on the tailgate, staring at the crate. "Sterling." Arthur didn't respond. "I need to say something." Crane's voice came out rough. He still wasn't looking at Arthur. "And I need you to listen. You've got nothing to say that I want to hear." "Maybe not." Crane finally turned, met Arthur's eyes. "But I'm going to say it anyway." The crowd shifted. Eleanor's hand found Arthur's elbow, squeezed. Crane took a breath. Let it out. "I've got a dog at home, mutt named Biscuit, had him 10 years, dumb as a rock, can barely see. Takes him 5 minutes to get up the porch steps." A muscle twitched in Crane's jaw. "I love that dog. Feed him from my plate. Let him sleep on my bed. Talk to him like he understands every word." Arthur said nothing. I drove about 10 miles down the road, kept looking in the rearview mirror at that crate. Crane's voice dropped. She wasn't fighting anymore, wasn't whining, just lying there like she'd given up, like she knew it didn't matter. The wind picked up, rattled the bare branches overhead. And I thought about Biscuit. Thought about what I'd do if someone put him in a cage and drove him away from the only person who ever loved him. Crane's hand trembled on the tailgate. He shoved it in his pocket. I told myself it was different. She's breeding stock, investment, business. He laughed, short, bitter. That's what I've been telling myself for 12 years. Count numbers, don't see faces, don't think about what happens when the numbers stop adding up. Arthur's hands curled into fists, uncurled. "I'm not a bad man." "Sterling, that's what I keep saying. I'm not cruel. Never hit a dog in my life." Crane paused. "But I hired people who did, and I looked the other way because looking was too hard." Silence stretched between them. The crowd held its breath. Those scars on her back, that leg that never healed. Crane's voice cracked. "I didn't do that, but I let it happen. Same thing, isn't it?" Arthur didn't answer, couldn't. Crane reached into the truck bed, unlatched the crate door. Bella didn't move, just lay there, head on paws, eyes dull. "Come on, girl." Crane's voice softened. "Come on out." Nothing. Crane stepped back, looked at Arthur. "She won't come to me. Can't blame her." He gestured toward the crate. "Maybe she'll come to you." Arthur's legs moved before his mind caught up. Across the yard, to the truck, to the open crate. Bella's eyes found his. Something flickered in them, recognition, disbelief. The faintest spark of hope. "Hey, Girl. Arthur's voice came out thick. It's okay. You're okay. Bella's tail twitched. Once. Come on out. I got you. She stood. Slowly, painfully, limped to the edge of the crate. Arthur held out his hand. Bella sniffed it, licked his fingers, then she lunged forward, nearly knocking him off his feet, pressing against him so hard he stumbled backward. He caught himself on the truck, wrapped his arms around her, felt her whole body shake, not from fear this time, from something else. I got you, he whispered. I got you, girl. Bella's tail wagged, properly now, thumping against the truck bed, against Arthur's legs, against everything. The crowd erupted. Cheers, applause. Eleanor was crying. Pastor Hayes had his hands raised toward the sky. But Arthur barely heard them. He was too busy holding on to Bella, face buried in her fur, breathing in the smell of her dog and dirt and home. Crane watched from a few feet away. His expression was unreadable. Arthur looked up, met his eyes. Why? Crane shrugged, looked away. I told you. I thought about Biscuit. That's not enough. That's not. Arthur stopped, tried again. You had her. You won. The law was on your side. Why come back? Crane was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice was barely above a whisper. Because she looked at me. Arthur waited. When I put her in that crate, when I locked the door, Crane's throat worked. She looked at me like she'd known this was coming, like she'd always known, and she wasn't even angry, just tired. He kicked at a rock, sent it skittering across the gravel. I've had dogs look at me a lot of ways. Sterling, scared, hurt, confused. But that look, he shook his head. That look was worse. That look said she'd stopped expecting anything good from people. That whatever I did to her, it was just more of the same. The wind died. The world went still. I don't want to be that man. Crane's voice hardened. I don't want to be the reason something stops hoping. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a folded paper, held it out. Transfer of ownership. I had my lawyer draw it up on the way over. Sign it, and she's yours. Legal. Arthur stared at the paper. Didn't take it. The puppies, too. All of them. They're in the box, in the front seat. Crane almost smiled. The little red one tried to bite me. That's Copper. He's got fight in him. Arthur took the paper, unfolded it, read the words legal jargon. Signatures. Official seals. Why should I believe this is real? You shouldn't. Crane shrugged. But it is. Check with the county clerk if you want. I'll wait. Arthur looked at the paper. At Crane, at Bella, pressed against his leg. Tail still wagging. What happens to you? What do you mean? The charges. The raid. Your operation. Crane's face darkened. Charges got dropped. Lawyer's good at his job, but he paused. I'm done, shutting it down. Finding homes for the dogs I've got left. Real homes, not. He gestured vaguely. Not what I was doing. And then, don't know. Figure something out, always do. Silence. Eleanor stepped forward. Mr. Crane. He looked at her. What you did today, it doesn't erase the past. Doesn't make up for the animals you hurt. I know. But it's a start. She held his gaze. That's something. Crane nodded, turned back to Arthur. Take care of her, Sterling. She deserves better than what I gave her. I will. Crane climbed into his truck, started the engine, paused. Hand on the gear shift. Hey, Sterling. Arthur looked up. That look you gave me. back when I first came to take her. Crane's mouth twitched almost a smile. Scared me more than any lawyer. He pulled away. The white truck disappeared down the road. And this time, Arthur knew it wasn't coming back. He stood in the driveway, Bella at his side, the transfer of ownership clutched in his hand. Eleanor appeared beside him. Her shoulder brushed his. "Well," she said, "that's not how I expected this morning to go." Arthur didn't answer, couldn't. His throat was too tight. Pastor Hayes walked over, clapped him on the shoulder. "The Lord works in mysterious ways, Arthur." Wasn't the Lord. Arthur's voice came out rough. Was a man. Just a man who decided to do the right thing. Maybe that's the same thing. Arthur looked down at Bella. She looked up at him. Her tail wagged slow, steady, content. "Maybe," he said. The crowd dispersed. Cars pulled away. Promises to celebrate later. Promises to bring food. Promises that felt different now, lighter, happier. Finally, it was just Arthur and Bella in the yard. The puppies squirming in their box on the porch. He carried them inside. One by one, Shadow, Daisy, Scout, Bear, Copper. Copper licked his face when Arthur picked him up. The runt, the fighter. "Yeah," Arthur said, "I missed you too." He set them in their bed, the one he'd built with his own hands. They piled in immediately, climbing over each other, yipping and tumbling. Bella watched from the doorway, then walked over, sniffed each puppy, licked their faces, climbed in with them. Arthur sank into his chair, the one by the window. Sunlight streamed through the glass, warm on his face. Margaret's photograph watched from the mantel. Wedding day. That smile. "You'd like her." "Maggie," he said quietly. "She's stubborn, just like you." The clock ticked. The radiator hissed. The puppies wrestled in their bed. And for the first time, in a very long time, Arthur Sterling's house didn't feel empty, but something still nagged at him. A loose thread. Crane's words echoed in his mind. "I'm done, shutting it down, finding homes for the dogs I've got left. How many dogs, and who would take them?" Arthur looked at Bella, at the puppies, at the empty space in his living room that suddenly didn't seem so empty. His hands, those calloused, scarred, builder's hands, began to itch. Maybe this wasn't an ending after all. April came slow to Minnesota. The snow melted in patches, revealing mud and dead grass and the stubborn green shoots of crocuses pushing through. The air still bit in the mornings, but by afternoon, Arthur could sit on the porch without his coat. He sat there now, coffee in hand, watching Bella chase a squirrel across the yard. She'd never catch it, her leg wouldn't let her, but she ran anyway, ears flat, tongue out, tail streaming behind her like a banner. The squirrel reached the oak tree and vanished up the trunk. Bella skidded to a stop, barked once, then trotted back to the porch. Satisfied. "Show him who's boss," Arthur asked. Bella's tail wagged. She flopped down at his feet, panting. The puppies had grown, leggy now, all ears and enthusiasm, tripping over themselves as they explored the yard. Shadow had found a stick and was parading it around like a prize. Daisy dug in the garden. Arthur would have to fill that hole later. Bear lay in a patch of sunlight, content to watch the chaos. Scout had gone to the Millers last month. Good home. 3 kids who adored him. Arthur got photos every week. Copper stayed. Arthur couldn't explain why. Something about that first night, the runt in his palm. Heartbeat fading. Fighting to stay alive. Some bonds you don't choose, they choose you. Copper bounded up the porch steps now, muddy paws leaving prints on the wood. He dropped a soggy tennis ball at Arthur's feet and looked up, tail wagging. "You're filthy. Wag. Wag. Margaret would have had my hide, letting you track mud in the house. Wag, wag, wag." Arthur sighed, threw the ball. Copper launched off the porch after it. The screen door creaked open behind him. Eleanor stepped out, 2 mugs in her hands. Fresh pot. She handed him one, settled into the chair beside him. "David called while you were in the barn. Said his flight lands at 3. I remember. Linda's coming Tuesday, bringing the grandkids. I remember that too." Eleanor smiled, sipped her coffee. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that didn't need filling. David had flown in last month, stayed a whole week. They'd built a birdhouse together in the workshop. Nothing fancy, just pine and nails. David took it back to Seattle, sent photos of it hanging on his balcony. Sparrows already nesting inside. It was a start. Pastor Hayes's car appeared at the end of the driveway. Saturday afternoon, their standing appointment. He'd bring beer. They'd sit on the porch. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they didn't. Arthur had gone to church last Sunday. First time since the funeral, sat in the back pew. Bella lying at his feet. Hayes had made an exception. The hymn sounded different than he remembered. Bowler, maybe. Or maybe he was just listening differently. The hardware store waved when Arthur walked in now. The diner saved his booth. The librarian recommended books on dog training he'd never asked for but read anyway. Small town, they remembered. He wasn't invisible anymore. Hayes parked beside Eleanor's Buick, climbed out with a 6-pack tucked under his arm. Afternoon, Arthur, Eleanor, Bob. Hayes settled into the 3rd chair, the one Arthur had built last week, because 2 chairs weren't enough anymore. Cracked open a beer, passed one to Arthur. They watched the dogs play, watched the shadows lengthen, watched the day drift toward evening. "Heard from Crane," Hayes said. Arthur's hand tightened on his beer, and he found homes for the last of his dogs. Closed up the operation for good. Hayes took a long drink. "Said to tell you thanks." "For what?" "Didn't say, just thanks." Arthur stared at the label on his bottle. Peeled the corner, said nothing. Evening crept in, the air cooled. Eleanor went inside to start dinner. Hayes left with a promise to return next week. Arthur sat alone on the porch, Bella at his feet, Copper curled against his leg. The sun dropped below the tree line. Orange light spilled across the yard, turning everything gold. He thought about Margaret, about the life they'd built in this house, the children they'd raised, the grandchildren who would visit next week, who would run through these rooms and fill them with noise and chaos and life. He thought about Bella, about a blizzard and a choice and all the ways one decision could change everything. "You know what? Maggie," he said it out loud, didn't feel strange anymore. "I think I'm going to be okay." Bella lifted her head, looked at him. Not the same, never the same, but okay. Her tail thumped against the porch boards. Inside, Eleanor clattered pots in the kitchen. The smell of something cooking drifted through the screen door. Pot roast. Beef and onions and carrots. The same thing Margaret used to make on Sundays. Arthur stood. His knees protested. He ignored them. "Come on, girl. Supper's ready." Bella rose, stretched, followed him inside. The screen door banged shut behind them, that familiar slap of wood on frame. The kitchen was warm. Eleanor stood at the stove, stirring gravy. Copper had already claimed his spot under the table. Shadow and Daisy wrestled over a chew toy in the corner. Margaret's photograph watched from the mantel. That smile, that dress she'd sewn herself. Her cardigan still hung on the back of the kitchen chair. Arthur hadn't moved it, didn't want to, but now, draped over the cardigan's shoulder, was a dog leash, and beneath the chair, a water bowl, and scattered across the floor, muddy paw prints that Margaret would have mopped up immediately. Arthur smiled. He walked to the window, looked out at the yard at the workshop where sawdust still floated in the evening light, at the oak tree where the squirrel had escaped, at the garden where Daisy's hole would need filling tomorrow. Bella pressed against his leg. Her head rested on his thigh. Outside, the first fireflies of spring blinked over the fields. Inside, an old man and his dogs stood together in the quiet. Not alone, not anymore. If your chest feels a little heavy right now, that's all right. Some stories settle into us that way not because they demand something, but because they remind us of rooms we've walked through ourselves. Empty chairs, quiet mornings, the weight of being needed by no one. Many of us have stood in doorways like Arthur's, wondering if anyone would notice if we simply stopped opening the door. Some of us have carried that kind of silence for longer than we'd ever admit out loud. And perhaps you've known what it feels like to be found by something small and wounded, something that asked nothing of you except to stay. This story doesn't need to teach you anything. It doesn't need to be wrapped up neatly or explained. Whatever it stirred in you, let it rest there. You don't have to do anything with it. You're allowed to simply feel it, and then let it go when you're ready. Thank you for staying until the end. Thank you for listening.